Hello and welcome again to another episode of The Extra Point. I am Ken LeGammon, and today I am joined by Pastor Darryl Burton. Darryl, first of all, I appreciate you joining me.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
And I should ask, is it Darryl? Should I go Pastor Darryl? What's the
just
problem?
Darryl. Just Darryl.
Okay.
Yeah, we won't be informal.
Okay, I got you. Well,
yes, sir.
I appreciate you coming on. We've known each other for a little while.
Yeah.
I go to the church that you're at. You're associate pastor there
Associate pastor,
Church of Resurrection in the Leawood campus, right?
Yes,
or
right.
do you make your way around sometimes to?
No, I'm at the Leawood campus.
Okay,
yes, that's
very good.
Yeah.
Okay, and so talk to me a little bit. What do your duties entail there?
Well, I'm as a congregational care pastors, funerals, weddings, and if there's any kind of special care need, someone's thinking about suicide, of course, going to do hospital visits,
right?
Hospice care visits. If there's some young person who may be running away from home and things like that. But prison ministries also is what I'm involved in as well, and that is with Miracle of Innocence, which is another organization that we started that's separate from the church in the sense that it's not under Church of Resurrection, but it's up under the Methodist church as a whole. Because
and we're going to get to that. Yeah, we're going to get to that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it must be very rewarding, though, I think. I mean, probably at times sad, some of the things you deal with, but other times, as you said, being able to help people and make a difference in their life and help them. I would assume that is something that's probably moved you in many different ways, and we're going to explore that. But you said something that you deal with prison ministries also, but you have a unique story, unfortunately. I wish you didn't have this story, but tell it for those folks out there who are not aware.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. I was in prison for 24 years as an innocent man. What happened was a guy in the city of St. Louis, near Ferguson, Missouri. Some of you heard about Ferguson, Missouri.
Right.
I lived in Ferguson, but a guy was pumping gas into his automobile one night, and another man approached him and shot and killed him. 3 or 4 people gave a description the night the crime was committed, and they said the man they saw commit the crime was 5'5", 5 feet 6 inches tall, medium to light skinned.
Right.
Now, I'm not 7 feet. I'm not tall as you, but I'm never going to be light skinned. This is as light as I'm going to ever be. No motive, ballistics, DNA, confession, nothing connected me to the crime with the exception of witnesses, snitch witnesses, guys who came to court, raised their hand and made a deal with the police and the prosecutor and lied on me. At this point in my life, I didn't believe in God. I was not a follower of Christ. I was very angry because they charged me with capital murder, which meant I was facing life or death.
Right.
And so when they came in the courtroom, I had a lawyer, public pretender, that's what I call him, who I saw one time. I had a trial that lasted 3 days, and I was convicted in less than an hour. And the judge brought me in for sentencing. I asked the lawyer if the lawyer had something to say. The lawyer said no. The judge said, well, I said, well, can I say something? He let me speak. And I said, you, this court, prosecutor, the police, you're framing me. I'm an innocent man. And I had learned also that the judge, the prosecutor, and the defense attorney had a sidebar, and they talked about another suspect who not only fit the description, but he had shot the victim 3 different times. The 4th time he shot and killed him. And they hid that. They kept that away from the jury. So I became real angry at the system.
Rightfully so.
Oh, man, I hated the entire criminal justice system,
Right.
But took a long time. Long story short, I went to Missouri State. They sent me to Missouri State Penitentiary, which is located in Jefferson City, Missouri. Time magazine described this prison as the bloodiest 47 acres in America at one time, and it was brutal. I mean, 3 or 4 stabbings a day was common, unfortunately. But they put me in this place, and it was a huge banner. When every inmate came through the doors, we saw this banner that said, "Welcome to the Missouri State Penitentiary. Leave all your hope, family, and dreams behind." And they meant that. That meant, it was basically no hope. It was a hopeless environment. And as someone who was not a believer in the Bible, but when I read this scripture, though, years later, Jesus made this comment, at least in the text. It said they would bind them hand and foot, throw them into outer darkness. There would be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And that's exactly what that was like. Unbelievable screams. I mean, I never heard men scream like that before. 2 or 3 guys in there, they were assaulting them in a sexual way, especially people sent to prison for harming women and children in sexual. They get brutalized. And some of those guys were innocent, just like I was. And they put us in these housing units. They assigned us these clothes with this number, 153063, what they assigned to me, and I hated it. And they stamped it on everything: clothes, pants, shirts, socks, caps, coats. I hated that number.
They dehumanize you.
Dehumanize you, exactly. Degrade you, dehumanize you, and total disrespect for your humanity. And they placed us off in these housing units after they stripped us down and told us stand spread eagle, naked,
Right.
30, 40 men, and they spray you under your arms, your genital areas, turn around, bend over, squat, and they spray you in every part of your body that has hair.
Right.
And then tell you to shower off, and they put us in these cages. Basically, there's nothing no more than I can describe them, just cages,
Right.
and this place was hell on earth. And they put us in these cages. I remember me and the guy, first day in this housing unit, day number 1, me and this guy was he was assigned to a cell, and I was assigned to another cell. And so we walking, they locked us behind these JC gates, real tall bars as thick as your wrist, and they use these long 6-inch skeletal keys. When they lock that gate, that's your only way in, that's your only way out. It's like gladiator school with tiers going up 2 or 3 stories with rows of inmates, just inmates, lots of inmates making noise. But at any rate, the first day in that unit, they locked that gate. Boom! We walked 10 feet. He got his bed linen stuff in his arm, and I got stuff in my arm. We walked 10 feet, and we heard some rumbling. Boom, 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 and turned and looked around. The first day we saw 2 guys chasing 2 other guys, and they were stabbing them. That first day in that housing unit. The day that I was released, August the 29th, they was rushing the man to the infirmary, prison hospital. A guy cut his throat from ear to ear, tried to decapitate him, and so much more in between, so much more. But here's what they were able to do to get me out. I tried to work on my own case because I didn't like lawyers. I hated all lawyers, and I became my own attorney in a sense. And I began to work on my case by filing motions and pleadings and briefs with the courts. And I kept getting denied every court, from the state courts, federal courts, Supreme Court. Everybody just was denying me. So I said, man, these courts, what's wrong with this? Because I'm innocent. But they wouldn't give me no appeal. Then I went on a letter writing campaign. I wrote hundreds and hundreds of letters from the United States to Canada to Europe. I wrote heads of states, Republicans, Democrats, independents. Right. I mean, I wrote senators, representatives. I wrote presidents, governors. I wrote Oprah Winfrey, Yes, I wrote the big O. Yes, I did. They got in touch with me when I got out. One of our producers, but I'm out now. You're a day late and a dollar short. Don't tell I said that, but anyway. No, that's so cool.
Well, she's a
big fan of yours.
Yes, absolutely.
That's right. But man, nobody would help me. Then I wrote to church, and I said, the church is supposed to help sinners. Well, I'm in the sinners club. Help me, and I didn't believe in, but the church wouldn't help me. So I couldn't get help from nowhere. I mean, literally, I wrote 700 letters or more. I wrote a lot of letters, man.
Well, you had time, right?
Entertainers, sports, figures. I mean, if I'd known about you, you with Pittsburgh back then, or if you with the Chiefs, I would have wrote you too. Yeah, I wrote sports figures, professional sports figures like yourself. I wrote a lot of people, but then, this organization, I saw on 60 Minutes. It was 1990, I believe. And this organization, the first organization called Centurion Ministries at the time, to help innocent people get out of prison. They're based in Princeton, New Jersey.
Okay.
And I saw them on 60 Minutes. They was helping a lady get out of a Texas prison. She had served 9 years for a murder she didn't commit. I said, man, they helping innocent people get out of prison. They got to help me too. I wrote them. 1990, they wrote me back. It was what they said, pretty much verbatim. It said, yes, we help free the innocent that are in prison, but we're a small organization with limited resources. We get 1,000 requests every year, 1,000 requests. Right. We only take 2, maybe 3 cases a year.
Wow.
And they had sentenced me to life without parole for 50 years plus 25 years consecutive. So I had 75 years. Right. So basically I had time to write. Yes. I said, it's going to take 10 years? Okay. Well, I'm going to write you for 10 years.
It's like, I got time.
Yes. I got 75 years.
Going nowhere.
Exactly. And I wrote them for 10 years.
Good for you.
Twice a year sometime. They took my case 10 years later. They took my case in 2000. From 1990 to 2000, they got me out in 2008. So that was 18 years from the first letter I wrote to that organization. 18 years. But here's something. I don't try to proselytize, push my religion, but this is where things begin to change for me spiritually. The organization is called Centurion, got the name out of the Bible, and it's okay for me to share this, right?
Of course, absolutely.
This is my story.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm a man of faith. I'm an associate pastor at the United Methodist Church of Resurrection.
Yes,
so this organization got the name out of the Bible. In Luke's gospel, in chapter 23, verse 47, I believe, when Jesus was being crucified, a centurion said, surely this man was innocent. It depends on your interpretation. That's where they took the name. So that was one sign. I'm not a believer at the time. The second sign is the man who founded that organization, his name is James. One of Jesus' apostles' name is James, and maybe one of his brothers. That's the second sign. Third sign, which is a kicker for me, the lead attorney who helped me get out of prison with a law firm right downtown Kansas City as we speak, Well, her name is Cheryl Pilot, as in Pontius Pilate. Man, you can't make this stuff up.
Right.
I mean, even a blind man, Ray Charles, could see somebody was trying to get in touch with me. And my grandmother told me years ago, we went to the Baptist church when we was growing up.
Right.
And I got away from the church. My grandmother told me, she said, boy, one of these days you're going to need Jesus. I just hope you remember to call on him. She's prophetic, but she was right. Yeah. She had died by this time, so her words echoed in my head. Can't nobody help you but God. Can't nobody help you but God. Here was something I was challenged. The guy said, Darryl, I know you don't believe in God. Maybe you have a problem, with God, but why don't you just try reading the Bible and just try to read these red letters. Those red letters are quote straight out of Jesus' mouth. I said, okay, yeah, I'd do better than that. I'm going to write him a letter. So I wrote Jesus a letter, literally.
That. Yes.
Pen and paper. Because I wasn't a believer, so it wasn't a prayer, it wasn't a plea. I said, dear Jesus Christ, if you're real and you know all things, you and I know I'm innocent. If you help me get out of this place, not only would I serve you, but I'll tell the world about you. Sincerely yours, Darryl Burton. Didn't have a mailing address, folded it up, put it under my mattress for a couple of days and got rid of it because if the guards had found that letter, they said, hey, this guy's going cuckoo for Cocoa Puff.
Wow.
He's writing letters to God. He don't really even believe in God. So he's losing it. Now, if I had went out on the yard and got into a knife fight, that's normal for that environment.
Wow.
But to write letters to God, they think you're losing it. You become a threat to them and somebody else and yourself. So didn't think much of it, but here was 3 signs also that came, to me from Jesus, a message from Jesus. Actually, it was 3 challenges. He said, love your enemy. Now, I hate everybody something to do with the criminal justice. Right. He's saying, love them. I hate these people. Then he's saying, pray for them. I'm saying, okay, Jesus, I pray for them. I pray a building fall on one of them fools. That's what I pray. I was not a saved person, not a Christian.
Right.
Third thing he said was really challenging. He said, forgive them. How can you forgive people when they taking your freedom, when they taking your life?
Right.
And I kept reading that. I didn't know his story, that he has a story of innocence.
Yeah.
I didn't know the story of Jesus. Was an innocent man, put on death row, executed.
Yeah.
And as Christians, we believe he resurrected. But he was innocent. I didn't know the story. Until I reading about his story. I said, man, this guy was innocent too. All these years ago, well, this is what happened. They beat him, they spit on him with a cat of 9 tails, crown of thorns put on his head till he bled. And then he said, this one verse in the Bible is what pierced my heart and began the transformation in my heart and my soul. He said at Luke's gospel again, chapter 23, verse 34, I believe. Okay. He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Right.
You've heard it. And I said, wow. How could this guy do that? That is incredible. How could this guy forgive these people? They're killing them, and he's innocent.
Right.
That was divine to me. That wasn't human. And so I said, man, if this guy can forgive at the point of death, then surely I have no excuses. So I began to try to pray for those people like he suggested. And this is how I begin these first prayers, because I'm angry, I'm filled with hate, bitterness, and rage at a lot of people. I said, I'm going to pray for them, Jesus, but you know what they did to me. Make them turn around. You know they let them. I was so angry. I was praying through clenched teeth. Yeah, I was filled with rage, Kendall. I was just, and I kept praying. Then I just gave up and said, God, I can't do it. I can't forgive these people. It's too hard for me. And it was like something whispered to me in my spirit and said, no, Darryl, you can't forgive them, but I can forgive them through you if only you would let me. And man, that's how the forgiveness worked. And then I went back and I looked close at that verse again and I saw Jesus. He couldn't forgive them either in his humanness. That's why he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. It can only come from God through us if we let God do it. And that's what the forgiveness message that I go around and talk about. That's how it works. Hope and forgiveness is what I like to share with people. And an acronym for the word hope is hold on, pain ends. And I love to share that with people because what you may be going through right now in this moment, wherever you are,
right,
it will end.
Right.
You will come through it. I'm living proof.
Yeah.
But when you're in the middle of it and it's turbulent all around you, everything seems to just be so against you and you're so overwhelmed with pain and problems, you're just in the middle of it. But that will end. Hold on, pain ends. At some point, that will end. And so the forgiveness, I realized it wasn't for them, it was for me.
I was just going to say,
it was.
When you're bitter with folks, you're in you create your own prison, don't you?
Yes, exactly. I'm carrying around and I think Pastor Adam preached on this before, I got this backpack filled with stones, filled with stones, just weighing me down. And when I'm telling you, as sure enough as he preached it, this happened to me, and I was in prison before I even heard him preach this here. But when I let that anger and unforgiveness go, I felt light as a feather. In fact, I felt free inside of prison. Inmates, guards saw it. They said, man, Darryl, you so peaceful, man. Man, what is going on? I said, man, there's something about this guy, Jesus. I don't know how it worked. I don't know why it works. But man,
It does.
It works. And I'm free. I'm free inside me. The guards, the gates, the locks, the prison, it don't exist for me no more. Whether they let me go or not, man, I'm free. I'm set free. So here's what they were able to do to, bring me back to society. The night the guy was killed, it was a woman. She was the gas station attendant, sold the guy the gas that night. And he, when she came to my trial, I should say. She came to my trial back in 1985 when I was going to trial. She was not a young woman. She had moved away to Baltimore, Maryland. But she had came to my trial in 1985 and told the police the day of the trial, when she saw who they had on trial, she said, wait a minute, you got the wrong man. That's not the man who committed the crime. He's too dark. My dark skin. And I used to be ashamed of my dark skin, but they hid that. That didn't come out till 2007. Yeah.
That's tough to...
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things to unpack there. Number one, when you got there, knowing full well that you didn't do this, I can't imagine the rage. For that time up until you became saved, exactly, through your own, you were basically reading the Bible and preaching to yourself to save yourself. I mean, I know God saved you, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
What was the mindset coming up to that? Was it bitter rage each and every day?
Yes. You're talking about all the days before. Oh, yeah. And the prison was filled with rage. You're talking about a place, you got all these guys. Everybody there is, men who, and many of them felt like the system did them wrong, even though they committed the crimes.
Right.
But they were filled with anger and hate and rage. Like I said, they described it as the bloody 47 acres in America.
Yeah.
So that, that was shared for a reason, because it was a lot of stabbing, a lot of killing. So, I mean, guys was just filled with a lot of, anger and fear, fear and which led to the violence and things like that primarily. But yeah, I was filled with rage, man, filled with anger all the way up to that point, because I know I shouldn't have been there. I knew the truth. The truth is, I'm an innocent man. No matter what someone else said, no matter what the jury said or the judge or the courts, I'm innocent. I know I'm innocent, and I knew they knew it.
That's what to me makes it even worse.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
For how something gets worse, I don't know. Okay, so let's fast forward to where you're essentially saved. No, but you're not out yet.
Right.
You mentioned the guard, but I would assume that maybe other inmates in there noticed a change in you also, and were you able to start sharing with them?
Yes, absolutely, exactly. Yeah. And in the prison, man, I picked up the Bible and then I started going out on the yard with it. Wow. I started going out on the yard, which, and guys in prison, you got the jailhouse Jesus, or you over there, so Christian prison religion, a lot of guys, you faking, and I wasn't, it didn't make any difference what they said.
Right.
But I was, I began to live out what I felt in my heart, what God had did for me. He gave me that peace. And then some guys, eventually guys start turning around. I joined the chapel services in the prison. But a lot of guys start, asking questions, and many guys in prison, they go to other religions like Muslims, they join the Muslim faith, or they may join, Buddhism or Judaism, different faiths. And some guys just stay neutral. They don't get, adopt any faith. But guys started asking questions, and some guys really knew that Bible much better than me. There was some guys in there who, they may not have been Christians by proclaiming Christianity, but boy, they had studied that Bible, that word. They were some theological scholars.
Interesting.
And they, you got some very intelligent men in prison. And they would quiz me, about my understanding of the Bible. And I was a new Christian, so I didn't know a whole lot, about the Bible. I just know I read it, man. It fed my spirit, it gave me peace. And but then I wasn't ashamed of it,
Right.
And so I was one of maybe a handful of guys who actually took our Bibles out on what you call the prison yard with us.
Yes.
Yes, and we would sit on the yard, man, and have a little Bible study, me and maybe 2 or 3 other guys, and of course, guys first they start out, they would jeer and make fun, but eventually, guys started, coming around and quizzing us and seeing what we knew, because they, knew the Bible. They said the devil believed and trembled, so they know the devil know the Bible probably more than he knew when Jesus was in the wilderness. And the devil said it is written, so the devil had to know. But at any rate, that started, kind of impacting guys, because they knew when I used to be real angry, the guards and everybody said, man, you're so peaceful, you got this peace, and I did. I just, I felt like in my spirit, God, you transformed and rescued me in the darkest place.
I want to stop that a second. This brings me to a part of the show, make a difference.
Yeah.
From here on out, you're still in prison. You haven't been released yet. But you've started making a difference in whatever way you can. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. There's a youth group. They start bringing in these youth groups, and we would talk to them and do tours. And this is even before I became totally, immersed in Christianity.
Okay.
I would talk to, young, kids, troubled, at-risk youth. They would come in. We would give them straight talk, not scared straight. Right. Just talk to them about the brutal reality of prison life. And if they don't get their act together, if you end up in a place like, where we was at, it's not good, and can't nobody help you. And then, like I said, became a part of the church community. I started playing the bass guitar, in the church band.
Okay.
And there's something else that I said on faith. I remember this is something that the preacher, the chaplain of the prison, rarely did something like this here, but one Sunday, he opened up what he called, testimonies, praise and worship and testimony. Basically, he opened up the floor, in the pulpit for anyone who wanted to come forward and share whatever was on their heart. He said, I'm not going to preach a message this Sunday. I'm just going to open up, for anybody who feel like something on your heart. You guys hear me preach every Sunday, but this Sunday, it's on you guys, because I know some of you guys are much better preachers than me. It's what he was saying, right? If, you had the opportunity to preach. He said, I don't want you to come and preach because we don't have but an hour. But he said, but I want you to come in if something was, and the Holy Spirit was nudging me. This was in January. It's just like now, it was in January. And the Holy Spirit was nudging me. Go up there, Darryl, and you proclaim, stand out on faith, that you're going to get out this year. This was in 2008. Wow. The Holy Spirit said, I got life without parole, life in 50 without parole. The Holy Spirit said, tell the men right now, before this year is gone, you're going to walk back in this prison as a free man, and you're going to witness to these men.
Wow.
This is 2008. That's what the Spirit, and I was trembling, man. I'm like, man, stand up on faith. A lot of guys were going up giving testimony, and I said, Lord, I'm a father. I hear, it's like I'm just getting something that's just speaking to me in my spirit. And I went up there and I said, man, I don't know the Spirit is telling me to tell you guys. I know this is January, but before 2008, before this year is over with, I'm going to come back as a free man. I'm going to be free, and I'm going to come back in here, and I'm going to witness to you, man, from the outside, and give you hope.
And that's what happened.
December the 7th, I walked back in that prison. I was released in August of 2008. December the 7th, I walked back in that prison, man, and I ministered to those guys, and I mean, It was tears and cheers, man. It happened, Them guys said, man, you said that in January. As the months rolled past, I'm like, God, I said.
And you've continued this. I know we're fast forward a little bit. You deal with something called Ministry of Innocence, correct?
Miracle of Innocence. That's right. Miracle of Innocence.
That makes a difference as well.
That's right. Absolutely. It's the Miracle of Innocence is to help innocent people get out of prison, just like I was helped. We basically modeled much as we could after Centurion Ministry, the organization, the first organization to help innocent people get out of prison, help me get out, and so many others. Well, we wanted to start an organization just like that to help men get out of prison, but we wanted to take it one step further. Once we help them get out, we want to help them get reintegrated and reacclimated back into society and help them with housing, transportation, communication, food, clothes, because none of that was there for me. I was homeless and everything.
I was going to say, I read about this. This boggles my mind is you couldn't get help because you got out because you were innocent.
Because I was innocent.
Had you committed a crime and got out, there would have been
all kind of resources. That's right. That's crazy.
That just makes zero sense.
That makes zero sense. If I had committed the crime and got out, I would have been able to get help with job assistance, with employment, with housing, with communication, with transportation. I would have had all those resources available to me.
And you were in prison how many years?
24 years.
So
over
essentially you're 24 years behind.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, first of all, I commend you for that, and I appreciate you telling your story, because that's not an easy story to tell. I mean, and honestly, I don't think that's something, I completely believe, that's not something you deal with and get over and get through unless you do harness the power of God and you do believe and understand. And that's just a beautiful thing. Now, you were a Christian, you got out, but When you got out, did you go to seminary school? Is that correct?
Yes. Not right away.
Not right away, okay.
But I went to St. Paul's School of Theology, which is housed, is located at the Leawood campus.
Yeah, that's Building A, I think.
That's the C, Building C.
Okay.
Yes, Building C.
Awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
That's Building C at the Church of the Resurrection in Leawood, Kansas. And I graduated seminary, and the seminary, that was hard because I didn't understand technology. You got technology and things like this. When I left in '84, this stuff didn't exist. Yes. I lost that whole generation. Just went past me, and so I get out and I'm in seminary, and I was doing my first paper with longhand, and I was writing it out, and my wife came to me and said, Darryl, you can't write out the papers like that. You got to type that up and upload it. I said, what do you mean? On your own computer? I said, I've never done that before. How do you do that? She said, well, you better get with your professors and at your school and shit. I can show you much. She said, but no, they don't write papers like that anymore. And I said, man, and so I struggled. That was the battle. I said, Lord, you got to help me. You got to help me get through this. Literally tears and fears. I said, no, I almost quit 3 times because of the technology. I didn't understand, loading it, uploading, downloading, what you did. I just see you moving around just naturally. It's something, but you've been around it. I had not been around this stuff, cell phones and this kind of thing. So God got me through that also. I said, God got me through that where I could graduate, from St. Paul's School of Theology, and then Resurrection brought me on as associate pastor. I've been there since 2013, and it's been a journey. That part was extremely hard, the prison part.
Right.
But coming out, this is not a cakewalk either.
No,
and especially not being compensated. The state didn't give me no support, no help whatsoever.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Just doesn't make sense to me. Okay, so we come to another part of the show.
Yeah.
Gratitude.
Yeah.
Being thankful. Talk to me about things in your life you're grateful for, and people in your life that you're thankful for.
Right. Well, I had a daughter when I went in, and my daughter was 7 months when I saw her 3 times, held in my arm, my little girl 3 times. She was 7 months. And that was my motivator also. My motivation was to get back to my daughter, to see my little girl again, because I knew I had a child out there and I wanted to be in her life. And so when I got low and felt like giving up, I would think about that little girl. So just hold on. God helped me to get back to my little girl. I'm grateful for that. I'm forever grateful for that. I'm grateful to be sitting here with you, Kendall. Here it is. I'm sitting here, in your house, man, in your home, and we doing, this video to give hope and a message to others, and what you've done, in your career, you've been successful, you've made, something of your life, and now you're giving back. You're giving back way of using this form. I'm grateful for this. A Resurrection took me in, allowed me to be associate pastor, with this church, for being able to, to share with people, what happened to me and how God has used this story, for His glory. I'm grateful for my wife and my family, and how they, she basically helped me with everything that I'm doing now. She's just been there every step of the way. In fact, she was the one who told me that I was called to ministry. I was just going around the world speaking, just public speaking.
Yeah.
She said, no, you called to ministry. I said, well, you talking about preaching? She said, yes. I said, no, I'm not a preacher. I'm not called to preach. She said, oh, yeah, you called to preach. I said, well, let me go to seminary and find out what do preachers do. I said, I know it's more than just reading the scripture.
Right.
But so, I'm extremely grateful. I don't take anything advantage. I know some people, leaves on the tree. When you've lost everything, Kendall, when you've been taken out of society for so long, everything, it's precious.
It takes on
a whole lot of new meaning.
I imagine you're grateful every day that you wake up.
Every day, man.
I wake up, I roll out. The first thing that I'm grateful for, besides waking up, is just the bed I had to sleep on, or the roof over my head. So many small things in our life we take for granted.
But I don't.
You're right. I can't imagine.
No.
So I'm curious about this.
Because, I want you to say something. But because I heard a guy, and I hadn't thought of this here, when another guy got out, he was exonerated also. He was there 33 years. He said the first thing he wanted to do was touch a tree. He hadn't touched a tree in 33 years.
Wow.
That's right. And that's what I'm saying. Just little things we take for granted.
We could hit pause, go and touch a tree right now. It is what it is.
Exactly.
Something that's so mundane would mean the world to somebody else.
Absolutely.
So I've got to imagine, and we're not going to get into my story because I've told it, but, I dealt with a lot of stuff as a child. One of the things is I had a gun in my hands at age 16, and I thought that was going to solve the problems. And so I speak about that openly. And because of that, people come up to me and talk to me after I speak, and it's like it gives them permission to confront some things that they've dealt with also. I would imagine you deal with that in probably an even much bigger fashion.
Yeah, and several things that out of this story that I never forget. Many things, but the ones when someone would call me from another state,
right.
I never knew, just heard of my story, and said I was going to commit suicide, and I heard your story, and it gave me hope. And one in particular, I'll never forget this story. This was a guy who had been paralyzed in his body for 28 years, paralyzed, couldn't move. He's not a believer. He heard about my story where I struggled with faith, and I was not a believer.
Right.
But then he's diagnosed with terminal cancer, so he knows he's going to die, just in a matter of days. Someone got him on the phone to me. He's in another state also. I don't know where he was. Don't even remember his name. But I remember him asking me. He said, Darryl, I'm thankful that you were willing to talk to me, but I never believed in God. And I've been paralyzed in my body for 28 years, and I have terminal cancer. I know I'm going to die. Do you think there's hope for me? Do you think God would, forgive me, and just, receive me? And man, I'm searching my mind, I'm trying to figure out, there's a scripture, I know it is. God, give me something, and he did. Immediately, when I asked God for something to share with this man, scripture-wise, and not just because he knew I had struggled with faith, but now I'm a believer. And it came to me in Matthew's gospel, and maybe Luke and some of the others also, but when Jesus was being crucified, there was two robbers on both sides of him. And I told this man, yes, I said, one of those guys in the 11th hour, he had never been a Christian. He had never been a believer. He had never followed God. But in the 11th hour of his life, he asked Jesus to remember him. And Jesus said, today you would be with me in paradise. I said, so if God remembered that man in his final days on life, he would remember you also. There's hope for you. And I heard him sniffling, crying. He said, man, thank you. I just needed to hear that. So it just kind of choked me up thinking about it. I don't know what God is going to do, with this story. But I've had several people who said they was going to commit suicide, right, and said, Darryl, you give me hope. I just picked up a couple of letters today. Some folks was just, and I'm not on social media big like I need to be, right, but just snail mail. Mm-hmm. And folks was talking about, how the story is inspirational and how it give people hope. Two different people from two different places, right, that I've given some talks some time ago. I don't know, maybe early in the month or whatever. But they were just writing letters of thanks, saying how the message that I shared with them of hope and forgiveness has impacted their life. And I spoke to two different groups. These was two different groups of people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I got a letter from two different people from these groups that I spoke to. Yeah, it was this month. So that just goes to show how God is using this story for him, not for me. It's bigger than me. Right. It's much bigger than me. Yeah, I pray to be a yielded vessel. And I said this here before. I shared it with Adam. And God had to work something out of me: hate, anger, unforgiveness, bitterness, work something into me: grace, compassion, love, forgiveness, so God could do work through me. God cannot work and will not work through an angry, vessel, right, a hateful vessel. I mean, we see what hate get us. I mean, look what happened at the Capitol. Hate did that. Love could never do that. Love could never do that. But hate can. Right. I was in a prison of hate. I've seen riots. I've been involved in riots, racial riots and other riots. It never ends well. Never ends well.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. I think it's so important, for us to tell our story. I'm talking to you right there, but I've got a story as well, because people, if they don't know the backstory, for you, they look like he's a pastor at Church of the Resurrection. This is that big church that's biggest in the U.S. and does so many great things. His life must have been fabulous and everything, because they just assume. Right. And not wrongfully, they just assume. Right. So that's why it's so important to share the story. For me, if I don't share my story, people just think that it was this perfect life, and it was not. There was things there, and that's the one thing that I really try to get through to people, which is, and I think it's human nature. And you tell me, I'm curious what you think, but I think it's our human nature to want to look as perfect as possible to the outside world in our personal life, in our family and friends' life, in our professional life. But that's never the case. And if it is, generally, I think it signifies that something's wrong and there should be a red flag out there.
Yes, I mean, that's a great point. You're right. We want to look flawless, like, we've never had a problem.
Right.
We've never had to go through anything, that we got it all together. I guess society kind of put that pressure up on all of us. We want to achieve. I mean, look at you, you Super Bowl champion, you're world champion. You've done some things in your life, right? So that's what we all want to aspire to, But like you said, the backstory, I mean, to get to where you ended up, it was not an easy road, and it's not easy for anybody. I don't care if you're Bill Gates, Elon Musk. They got problems too. They have issues. They have issues. Just like I can see a guy holding up a sign who's homeless. I know he didn't start out. In fact, 4 times I asked 3 different homeless people. It was three men and 1 woman. How did you end up like this, sir? And what's your name? 3, 4 times I asked these 2 questions. How did you end up like this, sir? And what is your name? All 4 of them begin to break down and cry. All 4 of them. And this is different times. They said, no one has ever asked me. I didn't start out like this. I had a home. I had a job. And I lost my job. I lost my family, and I just gave up.
I think inherently people want to matter. And when they think they don't matter, then that's when it can really break them down. That's the one thing, no matter what's going on, to God, you always matter.
You always matter.
And,
that's right.
Our stories are very different. But, I was just now moved with your story. Is 24 years is horrendous. That's horrific.
Right.
But it's also, you might not be here because you might not be a Christian.
That's right.
If that didn't
That's
happen.
Right.
I mean, you don't know. And I know that sounds kind of crazy to hear, but it's really not, I don't think.
No, it's not. Absolutely. Because I had swore off religion when I was young. You're right. I had swore. So I would never believe in the religion that my grandmother believed in and my mother. Because we was poor, man. And I was like, and they was giving their money in the collection plate. And I'm like, man, we poor, how did you get? God has not listened. He's not listening to your prayers. Now he may be listening to prayers in other folks' community, but he's not hearing us. And I felt like the pastors, and they was living good. They was doing well. I'm like, man, but they not bringing nothing to help us. Not like, resurrection. I didn't see it, as a kid, and I was judgmental. But you see other churches out there in the community doing things, helping people, and I just didn't see it, as it was with us. And so, yes, I struggle with just wanting to believe in something that I couldn't see, that there was no evidence that it was going to help me.
Faith.
Faith. Yes, I stand on faith. I as a kid, we believe in what's tangible, what I can touch, see, feel, what I can use, how I can feed me, literally, food. But, faith, I mean, and God showed me in prison, that, everything you think and think you can do is not going to help you. My grandmother said, it's going to take God. It's going to take divine intervention. Intervention, and here it is. I'm basically living proof, a miracle, because it was a miracle coming up out of that place, a miracle to come up out of a prison with what's called an indeterminate amount of time. That means you never supposed to walk out of here, and they used to call us dead men walking. So you guys are dead men walking. You're gonna die in this prison, 1 of 4 or 5 ways. You're gonna die of old age. You're gonna, die of a disease. You get stabbed to death. You get executed if you got a death penalty, or you're gonna hang yourself, commit suicide. That's what they said. Right. Horrible things, man. They said, that's what I'm saying. The place was just horrible. So
what was your mindset? I mean, you heard all that. You knew all that. What was your mindset that kept you going?
I said, you're not talking to me. And these guys, big old guys, they was big like you, so I said it under my breath. They didn't hear me, but I'm telling you, they were some big guys like you. So I could let it, but I was because I was angry. I mean, you ain't talking to me. I'm not dying in this place. I'm innocent. I'm not dying in this place, but that's what they would say.
And they probably chuckled at it a little bit too.
Yeah. And they wanted you to, get sassy and say something back, out of line.
Give them a reason to thump you.
Give them a reason, man. I mean, and those some big old guys, but I kept saying, I'm innocent, man. I don't care what they say. I'm getting out of this place. Like I told the judge, at the sentencing hearing, I'm innocent. I don't care how long it takes. I'm gonna fight this case till I prove that I'm innocent. Right. I'm getting out of here. So that was my mindset. And then my little girl, that was my motivator, and it was times when it was one time in particular, I was about to give up, man. I had gotten a denial from the court. I was just done. I said, I can't do it. I can't do another day in this place. And I got a letter from this young girl. She was not my daughter, but she was about the same age as my daughter. And she was like my little surrogate daughter. Lived in New Jersey somewhere. I never seen her, except on pictures. Her and her family. They would go to Switzerland. They would send me pictures. So she used to write me. She was corresponding. Someone gave her my name, and she just, wanted to pen pal, with a person who was innocent.
Right.
And she had heard from the organization Centurion. So this day I was out of there, man. And I got a letter, mail call, and that was so precious, to hear the guard say, hey, mail call, and you go up and you just wait and see if they're gonna call your name and number, the name and their number. But but they called Burton, you got mail. And I looked at this little young girl named Jessica, and I went up and I opened it up, man, and said, just hang in there, Darryl. You're gonna be all right. I'm praying for you. God got you. And I just broke down and cried. I'm like, man.
I'm tearing up now. That's
man,
special.
yeah, man, that is so special, man. I said, man, just the day when I was about to give up, man, I said, God, if you're real, help me, just help me, and here I am,
Such an inspiring story. Now
Yeah.
we've taken it full. Got the tears in my eye.
Yeah.
Full circle. I've heard you give the sermon at Church of the Resurrection at least once, but I think multiple times.
Yeah.
First time that you were slated and you're walking up to give a sermon at Church of the Resurrection, what was going through your mind?
Unbelievable. It was unbelievable. From where I went from this pit, this hellhole, and now, like you say, I'm in the largest Methodist church in the United States, if not the world. And God is going to use me to share a message, to preach. And I heard this guy, and there's another guy, and this guy knew the Bible too. I know he's still there. He's got a lot of time too. But he used to say to me, a man's gifts make room for him and bring him before great men and women. And that's in the Bible.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yes, what he said.
I love that.
Oh, man, I did too when I heard him.
Say that again.
I wanted him to say it again too. That's what I said to him. I said, say that again. He said, a man's gifts makes room for him and it brings him before great men. That's what it say actually. And it brings him before great men. And I'm just saying, and women. But I said, man, say it again. He said it again. And when I was there, in that pulpit, I said, man, that guy said that. A man's gifts make room for him, and it brings him before great men and great people. And that's what that was. I said, man, God, you did it. You did it. You said you would do it. And you kept your promise. You kept your promise. And here I am. I was overwhelmed, of course, just like with anything. I don't know a lot of stuff, I just, God, said, God, you take over.
Right, absolutely.
You take over. If I can't remember a lot of what I said,
right.
And I had it written down. But I got away from the script several times.
I understand that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Going on a tangent.
Take over.
So let's as we start to close this up a little bit, we've talked and referenced a little bit Church of the Resurrection, and they have different campuses around the KC area and do so many different things. It's wonderful. Just talk to me, because I'm amazed at the number of things that this church body reaches out. I mean, you're digging the holes for water in, I think, Malawi. I mean, we're packing backpacks for kids in downtown KC for food over the weekend. It may be the only food they get. And it goes, Habitat for Humanity. And then we hear about things. I was introduced to Father Matthews when he came and spoke about, when Adam talked about Thelma's Kitchen. I thought that was very inspiring. And of course, while I was playing football, I was going down there across the street to Operation Breakthrough with Will Shields, who's been on here also. He was my last guest. Yeah. And I mean, it's God's work, but it's still enormously prideful and just a beautiful thing what this church body has been able to do.
It is incredible. It is miraculous, yes, what this church does. And also, we got a campaign right now, Super Bowl, it's Super Bowl, the food drive for Super Bowl that's coming up. Tons of food. I don't know how many bags of grocery that people are going to come and contribute and donate. I mean, tons of food. This church does so much, and I've said this to Adam. Adam, even if I wasn't a Christian or believer, I would be with this church. It's doing the work. It's doing the work. It's doing the work. And I'm inspired by the miracle of Innocence. As someone who went through that, even if I was not a Christian, I would be trying to help innocent people get out of prison. Now, had that not happened to me, and you said it, would I be a believer? I swore off religion. I probably would not be a believer. But I've always been about social justice.
Right.
I've always been, and that's what I love about this Church of the Resurrection. It's about social justice. These are justice issues, man. When a kid can't eat, when a child is homeless, when
doesn't
a
have a
family's
bed
homeless.
to sleep on.
Exactly.
I mean, books don't have books to read.
How could you not care about that? Yeah, how could
on.
we not care about that? And so I cared about that because I lived like that, you know. I mean, I grew up, we were poor. You know, it was time when we didn't have food to eat. You know, it was, I mean, window panes, man, you had to put plastic in the window, you know, heat, gas, you know the whole drill, you know. And so now, I mean, just looking back, I'm saying, you know, when you go through all of that, all that drama, all that trauma, all that pain, you know, and not that everybody has to go through it, but God still can use that. Adam has said it, I don't know how many times, the worst thing is never the last thing.
Absolutely, I
Never
use
the
that a
last
lot.
thing.
And, you know, another one that I say almost all the time on this show and when I speak also, which is, if you treat people like they matter, well, then they do matter.
They
and this
do
world
matter.
becomes a better place.
Exactly.
And that's not a religious thing. That's a human thing.
That's a human thing.
Yeah.
You know, as we talk, man, you know, you just make me think of other things that just was inspiring for me, even as an unbeliever. There was some Catholics used to come into the prison.
Right.
You know, they do prison ministry. And they come in, and they still going right to this day. And they would invite us to come to these what's called retreats, these weekend retreats, like they Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It just, you know, you didn't get out the cell for 24 hours, but you got out every morning at 8 o'clock and you stayed with that retreat till 8 o'clock that night. You know, and these Catholics came in from the outside, and man, they would not be pushing Jesus. They would not be trying to, you know, tell you to read the Bible, and they were not judgmental. They didn't want to know how much time you had. They didn't even want to know about your crime. You know, they wasn't interested in that. You know, and they brought good food too. I have to put that in. They brought some really good food in, and so a lot of guys were trying to get on that Catholic out count. Muslims, unbelievers, Jews. Hey man, the Catholics come in, put me on that out count.
As has been said, about 90% of the religion is all the same. It's just that 10% that's
right.
different in all of them.
Exactly. But and so I went every time them Catholics came in, you know. But the way that they was treating us like human beings. You know, and I said this, and I heard some other guys say it also. I said, man, if I ever become a Christian, I want to be like them. I want to be like them. And that's what Church of the Resurrection and the Methodists, they come close to exactly like those people were.
Right.
You know, and not that I, you know, anything against Catholics, I didn't want to become a Catholic, but the Methodists, kind of middle of the road. But them Catholics, man, they was planting seeds.
Right.
I said, I want to be like them. And that's what I strive to be, like those people I saw. They just were showing us just God's agape love, just grace and love. That was it, you know. I mean, and when I got out, because I never told them people that I was innocent, didn't even talk about my case. Like I said, they didn't want to hear about it. But when I got out, they had their 30-year anniversary. They found me here in Kansas City.
Really?
They found me and said, Darryl, we're having a 30-year anniversary. We want you to come, you know, to this anniversary. It's going to be held in Jefferson City or somewhere up near the prison. I said, sure, I'll come. And I went up there. They said, you never told us you was innocent. Why did you keep that from us? I said, you guys didn't want to know about a guy's crime anyway. You didn't want to talk about it. They said, yeah, well, we didn't want to, you know, we just not to be judgmental.
Yeah.
But if somebody was innocent, we would want to know that.
True.
You know, I said, well, I said, you know, I had to prove it. You know, it had to be proven. You know, I said, because I know you probably heard a lot of guys say that. They said, yeah, but there are, you know, that is just incredible. All those years, and they came in for years and years, and like I said, they still go. They had the 30-year anniversary that I went to, so.
That's awesome. I wish you didn't have that anniversary.
Yeah.
But you look at it and you grew from it, and it's done so many things in your life.
Right, absolutely, man.
Well, this is called The Extra Point, and you made a lot of points today. Is there an extra point you want to make?
Yes, I want to say to those who view this here, go to miracleofinnocence.org, miracleofinnocence.org. This is an organization to help innocent people get out of prison, just like I was helped. You can go on there, you know, you can volunteer, you can click on the button if you want to, you can contribute or make a donation to support the organization, then go there and do that. Because if it wasn't for people like you, who's going to view, you know, this telecast or this video, I wouldn't be sitting here. So some people, you know, they cared and they were able to, you know, contribute to Centurion, and that's why I'm sitting here today. And that's, you know, that and the church. Also, these are, you know, that's my heart is into both of these ministries. I just feel like God has blessed me to take an opportunity. Kendall has blessed me with this opportunity to share what God has done for me. I don't take credit for anything. But I can thank you right now in advance if you just go and just learn more about us. Just learn more about miracleofinnocence.org.
Well, Pastor Darryl, I appreciate it very much. This has been a great talk. I really enjoyed it. It's been real, and I can't follow that for sure. That was beautiful, and I'm glad you shared that, because that's what this is about, is doing something also to make a difference. And we talked about some things, but also you're talking about that as well. So
yeah, I thank you. I thank you so much. And one other
yes.
another final point. If you just so happen to be able to connect me with, with these guys who I know, you may have some connection with Patrick Mahomes and Tariq Hill and Travis Kelce. If I could just get their autograph, man.
Get their autograph. Okay. I don't see them on a regular basis.
I know,
but
you may have
maybe we'll see this.
Yeah, you may have some insights to that. And if you can just get me, in their company, and tell my story to them.
Well, and that's why we're doing this also, because whether I get there or not, they've got a chance to see this as well, among so many other people. But I hear you, and I will work on that one. He is Pastor Darryl Burton. I am Kendall Gammon, and this has been another episode of The Extra Point. Thanks.
Thank you.